kind of go back to the topic of why I think JDG are frauds, right? So, yep, sorry.
Yeah, let's do it.
And so
I'm waiting for your opinion.
Is that I think that JDG is this is a situation where, I mean, it's like when in StarCraft you will have like these times where certain Zerg players or Terran players or Pearl players, and all of a sudden they're like winning tournaments and stuff like that because of a patch and a certain type of unit or a certain map in the pool becomes particularly strong for one particular type of strategy.
Basically, in the best example ever is in StarCraft 2 when Zerg was overpowered. It wasn't that like the best Zerg champion gets dissed, but if you're a guy who never came close to a championship and you suddenly won it, they called you a patch Zerg because the premise was it's only because the patch basically made you hyper powerful for that one time. That's what you're sort of implying here, right? That's why, because if people don't know, JDG, look, they were still a good team all split, but they weren't like the best team like they're looking now. So I'm assuming the premise is going to be that this meta has like boosted them a little bit.
Because if you look at where JDG is strong at, right, I think that where they've really excelled in is in the laning phase and in terms of these late game team fights and stuff like that. I think they're doing fine. They're doing better than some of the other teams who are obviously just making very serious team fighting mistakes. So I'm not too sure as in this is a team that plays more towards like mystic reduction and stuff like that. And given the nature of the LPL, it's very difficult to watch every single game. And JDG wasn't one of the teams that I watch very religiously in terms of like this is a team that I really like, right? Because I prefer not to watch the win game type of teams. And this team is going to be a fraud, and I'm calling them a fraud because I think that this is a team that if they win the LPL, which is they're facing off against TES, they're going to play a best of 5. There is a world where they win the LPL. They're going to go into Worlds. Everybody's going to be hyping them. They're going to be looking at all these players saying that, wow, these guys are so great. We don't know how the metagame is going to be changing when it goes to Worlds. And this is a team that there's a very good chance they just completely bomb out of groups. Because I think that this team has got no idea how to play the mid game. And even then, with all these leads they're getting, even in the LNG set, where they 3-0 them and stuff like that, you give that to any other team, and that game was over in 20 minutes. And when JDG plays it, their mid game is so atrocious where it comes to a point where these teams with 8,000 goal deficits can find ways back into the game, can find ways to get to the team fighting phase, and then it just goes back and forth. And the TES JDG series, a lot of people would say that that's the best series that of League of Legends in 2022, and possibly in the history of League of Legends. But to me, as somebody
not that one, the first one maybe, the second one no.
Yeah, the second one's more like the LoL esports Fion take, which gets all the attention on Twitter.
Yeah,
the first one was good. Let's stick with the first one.
As somebody who models the game in this like chess manner, right? This is an absolute nightmare. I hate watching this series because this is a team that gets a lead. They don't know how to press the lead. They don't understand what it means to be first on the map. They don't know how to approach mid lane, and the setups for the objectives are very wonky. I would almost say that this is where you would say that and people always say, oh, but in China and Korea they always do these ARMs too, right? So why is it that people always stuff at NA? It almost felt like that. There's some differences here, right? Because they're like playing chess, they're putting the knight in these places, but the knight grows wings, and all of a sudden he's like taking 3 pieces. So that's the difference between what they're doing in the LPL and in the LCS or some of the lower tier.
The only problem with that analogy is maybe don't use the fucking knight when there is a player called knight in the game, Jensen. That's the only reason you confused me. I got lost there. Like, so wait a minute, what was he playing? Like fucking, he was playing Swain or something, I guess. He got wings or something. He was flying or something. All right, he meant the piece in chess, obviously. The
I'll play devil's advocate here for you a little bit, and I'll talk about what was good about this series. So there were, first off, the team fighting was really good, I think, in this series overall. And so when we're just talking about team fight micro, what was so impressive is that both teams were doing an excellent job of keeping track of summoner cooldowns. They had very clear objectives in both fights, which led to really skillful and very even team fighting, because each team would like kill half the other team and then have to withdraw licking their wounds because they knew exactly like which target they needed to go on in this fight based on the positioning, based on cooldowns, et cetera, et cetera. To sing JDG's praises a little bit, one thing that they do very well is that they are not cowards, and even when they're down, they are going to try and fight, and they are really good at finding the right engage from a deficit. Like, they will identify who is weak, when they can strike, and they just all in instantly with one mind and are able to pull off some rather unlikely engages on certain targets if they're left alone, as we saw against top esports. So I do think that, and Hope also played really well in this series in terms of team fighting ADC. I think Yagao's rise was really impressive. He was pretty good on some of these other champions. I think the downside to this is that top, as good as Jackie Love was, Wayward has had a kind of a bad couple of series, which is unfortunate considering he was
still essentially a rookie, to be fair.
Yeah,
I give him leeway on that one.
Yeah, and Knight also was not great in the mid and late games. Like, he didn't have a lot of the carry performances that you would want out of him. So I think like the top performers on top were more or less like Mark stepped up. I would say Mark was pretty good in this series, but Jackie Love was particularly impressive. But I do think the solo lanes left something to be desired on top esports.
I guess I want to ask a question from Jensen on that one, which is one of the things. Like, I'm a massive Knight fanboy, by the way. I actually do think this guy was like the best player in the world every day except World / the LPL finals for about the last 3 years. Like, he does look, basically, people don't know, the eye test checks out like a motherfucker on this player. He is so good. But then the problem is, when you're that good, anytime you ever do basically just play a normal game, you wonder what's going on. So one thing I wondered about this one here is, like, some of the drafting, like, it doesn't look like they drafted for the player I watched, dude. Like, why is he playing Lissandra? You know what I mean? Like, why is he on these champions? Like, Knight's the guy you want on the Silas. You want him, like, smashing the game, dude. Like, what do you think, Jensen? Do you think they were, like, too conservative with the draft on him, or they were trying to play to the meta or something? What do you think?
I think it's more towards what the meta affords them at this point of time. And it's also a lot about trying to identify like what the scrim blocks were, right? I think that this is only after this weekend where the cookie kind of crumbled, and then we see all the map control teams losing, and then this idea of like the proactive mode was a proactive style of play, not necessarily being better. I think it did Lissandra against that was against Ari, right?
Yeah.
So you're just looking for like the lockdown against him. It's not like they're putting it actively like how V5 would blind pick Lissandra for rookie, right? So it's more of like a champion specific thing, it's a matchup specific thing. And of course, I think Knight's most well known, the champion that people most closely associate with him is Syndra, which is a champion that's been out of meta for some time now. So
I would tell Bjergsen, but yeah, keep going.
Did he play Syndra this weekend?
He played it. He did play it in LCS. He did play it in LCS. Yeah.
Right.
He lost, unsurprisingly. But I also think, at least in the Lissandra pick, Thorin, that like when you're playing the Draven and you're playing into like Vi can't ult Lissandra as long as Lissandra's ult is up. That's what he's playing into. You can lock down Ari. You can lock down the Lucian, who's going to have to be on the front line at some point in time in a team fight, right? So I think it makes a lot of sense with that composition. Also, it went on a little
sense,
long.
But here's the difference, though. It can make sense in the comp. I'm just saying, if I have Knight, I don't want him playing fucking Lissandra and Galio. He's not going to be high. Whatever.
I mean, he wasn't really good on the Talia either. Like, he got caught a lot in this series, I would say, which was disappointing. There is, like I said, some credit to given to JDG because they are very good at engaging on you. And one thing that always tilted me about this JDG team this year has been watching them. Sometimes they just like, they'll see you in the enemy jungle and like their whole team will just run in where there's no vision and just like try and kill you. Like, if they see you, they will try and kill you, which can work very well if you're out of position. But if you're in position and they don't have vision, they can just completely int at times.
So that kind of ties into why I'm saying that JDG are frauds, right? Because I think that is the right idea, right? When you're ahead of the map, when you have the lead, that's actually how you want to play the game. But the way that JDG is doing it, the way that 369 is just walking through the jungle, just getting chunked for free, it should be the other way around. You're walking into the opponent's jungle and you're chunking the opponents for free because they're done the numbers and you have done the correct setup, so that you know that you have the numbers advantage when you're walking in there. And that's why I say that even then, when I'm just watching JDG in the mid game, they're kind of like they have this very strange idea of what it means to push the agenda in the game, where they're trying to look for these fights, but they're not doing the right prerequisite steps in order to achieve that. And that's kind of why I think that if the meta changes a little bit at Worlds, or even in this meta where if they go against, so this is where the Copian comes in for the Western teams, right? Where right now, if this meta is going to reward all its Mystic reduction teams, where all they're going to be doing is stilting and stuff like that, this is how JDG is going to lose games against them. They're going to go in there, they're going to get big leads against the likes of 100 Thieves and Rogue and stuff like that. But once they reach the mid game, you're going to see 369, oh, it's a 9 all to the laning phase, and in the mid game, he's going back to being a 3, and he's just giving away free kills. He's putting his team into bad fights.
I do love that meme about 369.
Because by the way, it's just like so applicable to his style. Although I will say, to be fair, he was way better this playoffs. He looked like the joke is once he left top esports, he's got way better. It seems like. I
mean, 369 is that guy, is that teammate in solo queue, right? Where they're like 4 5-0 from the laning phase and stuff like that. And they start to take all these stupid fights in the mid game, and they start to say, "Oh, where's my team?" and stuff like that. And they start flaming you and say, "Oh, but I'm 5-0, now 5-1 after they died, right? And I'm 5-1, and you're 0-1 or 1-1. So don't talk to me and stuff like that." That kind of
Renekton player ever, basically. Every Renekton top laner. There you go in solo queue. Exactly.
That kind of feels like what I'm watching when I see
Yes.
see these guys play, right?
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.